Hi everyone, welcome back to the Hashira Half Hour. What a week. We are excited to jump right in. Today I'm going to be your host. My name is Emily, and I just want to get started. I'm joined as always by Bryan and Hana.
What's up, y'all? Honestly, this episode was pure fire. Honestly, all gas, no brakes, and I don't know how we can go better from here, but I know UFO table is gonna blow my mind, so I'm super hyped to get into this one. Hana?
Hino Kami Kagura! I don't know the last part of that, but hi! Kamado Tanjiro desu. Yoroshiku onegaishimasu. I'm Hana, but I'm cosplaying Tanjiro today because I'm going to a convention after this, so I'm all over the place, but I'm really happy to be here, and I also don't know where we can go from here, but I think it's going to get better, which is wild.
We keep saying that. Every time we're like, oh, that was amazing. I don't know how they're going to do better. And then they always do. They knock it out of the park. So thank you, UFO Table. We're eating good tonight. So let's just jump right in. Episode 5 of the Swordsmith Village Arc. Bright Red Blade.
Mm-hmm.
Bright Red Blade. And boy, they weren't kidding. So we start off. We are with Muichiro and Kotetsu. And carrying this poor little guy through the forest. He's like, which way is it? Kotetsu's like, I wish I knew, but you're carrying me backwards. And they are going to go help try to rescue some of the swordsmiths and head hopefully towards the village on their way. And this is one of our first encounters that we're about to have here with Gyoko as well.
What an entrance, too, for him. I mean, we already got his entrance in, like, episode 3. Well, technically episode 1. He keeps being very dramatic. But I love how, like, we're just kind of having this conversation, and then Muichiro just, like, stops, and he's like, wait, he's here. It's like, oh, man. Here we go.
Yeah, it's definitely been a very interesting way to start a fight, because we really haven't seen who's at the helm of all these attacks so far with the big fish. So really, now that we're seeing kind of, you know, how Gyoko's style has played out so far, it's all kind of coming together as a puzzle, right? Because now we see that, you know, each of these fish demon have had the vase, and now we finally see, or at least Muichiro is able to connect, like, oh, okay, this is, you know, who is my big bad, and now I have to face them. So he's finally getting to piece together all this information, and he's already seen Upper 4. So he knows, he's the only one who knows actually what's going on at this point, because he's seen both sides of the fight. So really a critical player here. Very interested to see kind of how he goes throughout the rest of this fight, though.
Yeah, he's the only one, I think I mentioned this, he's the only one who knows that there's upper rank 4 and upper rank 5 now.
Yeah, that's true. Nobody else is aware that the fight is, like, doubled, but, like, really it's, like, what, quintupled or something like that? Because you got this other one split into 4, and we're not even going to count how many times technically Gyoko has used Blood Demon Art to kind of split the violence that is forced upon the town, and, like, this horde of fishmen demon creatures that are attacking. Right. So quite an entrance, but we're going to come back to Muichiro here in a minute, because we also had a big reveal at the end of the last episode with Mitsuri coming on in, and that's where we pan back to now, because the fish are overtaking the village, and somebody needs to take them out, right?
God, they did her so much justice. I was in shivers watching her the entire time. She barely broke a sweat. Like, she did a flick of the wrist, quite literally, and had fish on the ground disintegrating. It was such an amazing sight to see, and I was so happy that she got some really cool moments in there. Honestly, I have too many feelings to put into words right now, so I'm going to pass to Hana before I break out.
I mean, sitting next to Bryan while he watches Mitsuri get, like, animated fighting for the first time is such, like, an honor and just, like, a great, like, experience, because the joy that came out of Bryan just made me so happy, because this is, like, his moment. I get my moments every episode, right? Like, my favorite character is the main character. Like, he's always fighting, but finally getting this reveal and just watching her, like, literally just run into the town and not even stop. She's just whipping her sword around. We're getting to see the whip for the first time, taking out these demons left and right, and doesn't stop. She just keeps running to go for the village chief, and is saving all these people after we unfortunately did lose a few. Those fish were pretty tough, but
more like piranhas.
Yeah.
Yeah. But she was not breaking a sweat, and I love how all the swordsmiths are like, another Hashira is here. She's so strong. She's so fast. Oh, I forgot because she's so cute.
And she's like not even breaking a sweat.
Yeah.
She's not even stopping. She just is like, she knows that she took them out. She doesn't need to look back. She's like, they're done. And I got literally bigger fish to fry.
No.
And she, you know, they're like calling after her and like asking like, hey, please go help the chief. The chief is like the most talented swordsmith in the village. And so we do see him, and he's in the clutches of like probably the biggest blood demon artfish that is there so far, amongst a couple others. It has a few arms, but like the chief is there, and one of the swordsmiths is kind of coming to and is trying to help the chief. And there's already like, there's dead demon slayers in the room. There's like slaughter all over. And then she makes her entrance, and it's pretty badass to get to see her step in and save the day.
Yeah, I want to let Bryan talk a little bit more about that, but I want to call out the soundtrack because I always love to call out the soundtrack. And this season, my expectations were very high, and they are surpassing it in every episode. And her theme is so perfect for her, so fun, but also like it's your Demon Slayer theme. It's a Hashira, and it just fits so well with the theme and the reveal of love breathing. And her just coming in to save the day was such a phenomenal moment. I was just like, oh my gosh.
Honestly, love breathing was so amazing. I literally was losing my marbles watching this happen. Like, first off, the way that she was spinning and twirling, like she was serving during that entire scene. She was literally like so flexible, so agile, and so like able to control her body. It was so crazy to watch because it's so different from every other style we've seen. You know, water breathing is the most flexible style we've seen so far, as opposed to like being able to turn, being able to twist. Fire or flame breathing and sun breathing have been very like straightforward to a certain extent. And now you see mist breathing, which is very evasive, but this is like very different from everyone else we've seen because it's so based off of like agility. So that's like just a cool fighting style. But then also seeing the way it pans out and watching after she hits this whip through this demon, she like pop, 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 and then the demon explodes. Like that was so cool. And it's just so nice to see this like bright, bubbly character get her badass moment, because like I feel like that's every like bubbly person on the inside. They're truly a badass. They just want to be nice about it. And so we'll get to the Taisho era secret later because that was just as good.
She is so cute, but she is not there to mess around either.
Yeah.
It's like it's very interesting because there are not many women in the Hashira. There is more than one, but there's not very many of them. And even the difference in the ones that we've seen so far is very stark in like the personality types. And yet both of them are like very soft spoken in comparison to their male counterparts. And that's probably just part of like just the expectations that are set upon them, just being born women. And we'll get to some backstories a little bit later, but it's almost like they have to have this like gentle natured, sympathetic kind of outlook, but they still need to be able to kill some demons. It's really cool. It's really cool to see that contrasted in this scene. And the love breathing is just beautiful. It was not what I was expecting.
I think there might be more to come because we didn't see much. It was mostly just like there was a little bit of sparkle, and then there was some like, you know, but I think that was more like her sword than anything else, like hitting, because she can hit at so many different directions because it's a whip. So I think they're still kind of keeping the love breathing a little bit more tightly held back for maybe a little bit later. We'll see it like in its full glory.
Yeah, I hope so. I'm excited to see some of the different breathing forms that she'll have, but really cool entrance for her. Very deserving of such a great moment. So she does cut down this fish, and she's able to do it pretty effortlessly once again, even though this is the one wreaking the most havoc. And we get this kind of like goofy little moment with the chief of the village. She's like, don't go to the light. She's holding him. And he's like, what a beautiful lady. I'm just overjoyed.
I'm on cloud 9.
and then the other swordsmiths are like, wait, I hit my elbow. Come hold my hand.
She's like, oh, daijoubu desu ka? And then she like, all I imagine is like, because they cut away from that, I imagine that she's just like holding both of them awkwardly, like trying to hang on to Chief while she's like, here, I'll hold your hand. And then this is like a cuddle puddle.
I mean, that's so Mitsuri, you know. Clearly this other's, after what happened with the chief and him just kind of being a little bit of a pervert, honestly. And she's just, but her reaction was like, oh, like, you're so sweet. And then the other swordsmith was like, ooh, it's my time. So he's trying. He wants to be held by her. And she's just like, oh, yeah, are you okay? Daijoubu desu ka? Like, you know that she probably was like, oh, come here. Like, no idea that these guys are, you know.
Simps. Am I allowed to say that, or are we going to get banned?
We better not be.
I'm
pretty sure I've used that
from
word
Missouri, so it's fine.
Oh my gosh. Well, she's tending to them, and it seems like they're probably going to pull through all right, save for the ones that were already smeared on the floor. But the chief is going to be okay, I think. We'll come back to Mitsuri soon, but in the meantime, we cut because there is a really cool transition here, actually, with like orange and like red mist kind of floating across the screen. And we see that that's Tanjiro. We hear his voice over it, and he's like, what is that smell? And then it's how he comes to again, relying on the old sniffer once again. But he wakes up, and Nezuko is like carting him away from the middle of this massive fight. The last that we saw them, they were getting thrown down like several floors, like WWE style. Like, they were getting rocked. And that's where we left them. So he's just now waking up, and Nezuko's hauling him away.
Well, she probably woke up pretty fast, because fairly certain the demon was about to, like, deal the final blow, like, throw enough wind at them that, like, they would have just been crushed and, like, destroyed. But I love that she, like, Nezuko is really shining in this. You know, I feel like usually this part in the season, like, she's still in the box, and, like, she'll come at some point, but, you know, she's kind of being protected by Tanjiro, and he's, like, keeping her out of the fight. But because of the way this fight started was so different, like, she is in the throes of battle and already just being so helpful and so important to this fight. I just really love to see that continued development for her. And, yeah, I mean, if she hadn't woken up as fast as she did, they would both, well, she probably would have been fine. He would not.
Yeah, and I think, you know, at this point, they've kind of got it down, right? You know, they say third time's the charm, right? This is well, I guess it's not the third time that they've, like, worked in tandem. It's the fourth. But really, now they're fully into it, because they've really been able to pass the torch to each other very fluidly, right? Like, you know, Tanjiro is, like, barely waking up, and, you know, he's on Nezuko's shoulder, and then they immediately reverse positions, and then Tanjiro's carrying Nezuko. So, like, they're just going back and forth, making sure that at least one of them is conscious to keep the fight going, so that way they can stay alive. Because if at least one of them's alive, you know, Nezuko can regenerate, hopefully, or Tanjiro can, you know, maybe breathe his way out of things. But, you know, that's...
Recovery breathing.
I mean, essentially, recovery breathing. That's what he did against Daki, so it's close enough. But this is really cool because, you know, now I feel we don't have just one protagonist at this point, right? Like, Nezuko is really coming to step in as her own protagonist with her own goals in mind. Of course, right, she wants to help Tanjiro stay alive, but also, like, her goal is to be just as strong of a fighter as her brother, I feel, at this point.
I think that's definitely a big theme in this episode is, like, growth and leveling up, for sure. But Nezuko has definitely leveled up, and we talked about this a little bit in last week's episode, but, like, not only is she, like you said, Bryan, she's, like, really continuing to gain her own agency here and become more of an active part of the fight than, like, something that passively happens than what we've seen in the past. She's also built up a lot of resistance, too, because there's humans all around her in all sorts of, like, varying states of injury. And for a demon, that's got to be so tempting to want to be able to eat. She hasn't eaten in literal years. Yeah. And you can tell, though, that is, like, the farthest thing from her mind in this moment. She's just concerned about protecting her brother and trying to join the fight. And we're not seeing that temptation the same way, I think. So that speaks to her inner strength and her leveling up and her improved fighting ability.
Yeah, I mean, I think I touched on it when we were talking about episode 3 when Tanjiro was like, don't transform, you'll go full demon. But she clearly has found a way to, like, control it. And I love that she's getting that agency back. Like, her story really is about, like, having her humanity taken away from her in such, like, an awful and traumatic way. And she's slowly, like, gaining it back while still remaining a demon. And I think each arc, in one way or another, has helped her get there. Even though, like, the last arc was tough because she kind of lost herself for a while and almost ate humans. But I think that was needed because now she's understood, like, how she can handle that form. And she's figured out that she's super strong in it, but she clearly can control, like, that desire to eat humans because, yeah, like, where they are, there's not really any other than, like, last episode when Genya was right there bleeding out. So she was not acting at all like she wanted to eat him, like, not even trying to fight it. So she's definitely getting somewhere. But also, to piggyback off of what Bryan said, to see their Tanjiro and Nezuko's roles reverse so quickly. Like, she's the one carrying Tanjiro out. He's still unconscious. He wakes up. They get hit with lightning. She goes out. He wakes up faster. Now he's carrying her out. And it's just such a great parallel of, like, everything they've gone through so far. They're constantly back and forth. And this was, like, a legitimate, like, straight up back and forth. Like, we are literally just switching roles here seconds later. It was really cool.
It was really, really nice. And they're not done yet. They need a moment to get away and try to recover, but they're being actively pursued still by all these different, like, split forms of Hatengu. So they've got to get out of there. The guy with the leaf is pursuing them most quickly. And obviously that did not go well for them at the end of the last episode. That's how we ended up where we are.
Yeah.
So they need to, like, formulate a plan. So Tanjiro is trying to think about how can he try to land a blow on each of them. And obviously the house is just getting, like, torn to shreds that they're in too. So they need to figure that out. More to come on that in a moment. But then I believe we cut back to Muichiro and Kotetsu and Gyoko. And this scene with Gyoko definitely takes a turn for dark pretty quickly. Gyoko, we learn, this is, like, I think the first formal introduction that we've had beyond the Infinity Castle. And definitely with any of the human characters. So Muichiro is aware that this is an upper rank demon. And he doesn't take too long before he does formally introduce himself and what he's interested in. And he's somewhat of an artist. If you can call it, I guess this would truly be blood demon art. Artist in the eye of the beholder. He's beholden something, for sure. He has an affinity for vases, but he has an affinity also for what comes out of those vases, or what is inside that matters. And so we see very shortly after his appearance this, like, grotesque configuration of the corpses, essentially, of a lot of the swordsmiths. There's, I think, 4 of them in just this one art piece that he's showing. And this is, like, torturous for Kotetsu and the other swordsmith that's there. Because it's, you know, it's a small village. It's all people that they know. This is maybe one of the most cruel displays I think that we've seen that was just cruel for truly no reason at all. There's no consumption happening here. He talks about their bodies as ruined. He describes that, like, the hands and the blisters on the hands from welding the swords as ruined. So he just made this for fun. Just for the consumption of art. What do you think about that?
Very grotesque. And also, they're, like, zooming in on certain moments that, of course, we as manga readers, like, we knew this was coming, but Ufotable's like, yeah, we're gonna milk it a little bit more. But just, yeah, it's tough to watch because you have Kotetsu and Kanamori kind of, like, sitting there, and they're saying all of these swordsmiths' names. Like, they know them personally. These are not just, like, it's not hurting them because, oh, those are swordsmiths just like me. It's hurting them because they genuinely know them. And I don't know if this was, like, a weird translation, but Kotetsu even called one of them uncle. So I don't know if that necessarily means that it was actually his uncle. I'll have to go back and listen to what he said again to see if, like, it actually meant uncle or if it meant, like someone more respectful.
Close friend.
Yeah. But just to see, like, the pain in their face as they look at this was the pain in their face with their masks. But like the way we feel their emotion, even though we can't actually see their faces, was really incredible too. Like you knew that like they were brokenhearted over this. And Gyoko is just sick. And we haven't seen a ton of that yet. I think the last time we saw like such a grotesque sight for no apparent reason was when Daki just killed all of those people around Tanjiro, and then what happened right after that was pretty intense. So it's like, why, it seems like upper moons have that more of a desire to kill for fun and kill for art in Gyoko's mind.
Yeah. I mean, as like a big horror stan, I was eating during this moment. Let's be real. Like, this moment was like pure, like grotesque. It was everything I wanted out of a horror scene. And like people call JJK, Chainsaw Man part of the Dark Trio and things like that. I would argue that Demon Slayer is getting there. Is pretty dark. Like, let's be real here. This is definitely a scene to talk about. First off, kind of reminds me of a character from Naruto. He's in the Akatsuki. He's blonde. If you know about him, Art's an Explosion. But it's very similar because this concept of destruction for art, or this concept of humanity's sacrificing for this, form of creation, it's really interesting to see because you get this perspective that there's a, superiority complex with the demon versus these humans they're using for fun. And it really tackles kind of, the arrogance of demons. And even though that they're, doing these really grotesque things to humans, they aren't, impervious to the demon slayers. We've seen that before. The upper moons can be taken down. So it really speaks to how, to a certain extent, the demons themselves are not aware of their own weaknesses. So I think it's very interesting that, they're very, haughty, if you will, with their actions, but their arrogance can be their downfall.
I like all of that a lot, Bryan, and I think that something that'll be interesting as we continue to meet or learn a little bit more about each of these upper rank demons is we know that the closer they get to the number one spot, the less of their humanity that they retain. Each of them, I think, has an important lesson to teach us as well about humanity, interestingly enough, because they're demons. But there are some really interesting statements that I think are being made. And I had forgotten a little bit about Gyoko until we were watching this scene. And it's like, there are these arguments about like, does art have to be ethical? And it's like, you're watching this, like, obviously you'd think that the answer is yes, right? But at the same time, it's like, but do artists also have a responsibility to bring out what is grotesque? But at the same time, it's like, but who was harmed in that process? Can you ever really make truly ethical art? Or does somebody have to suffer? Whether that is like the subject or the artist. It's interesting. Yeah. And I don't know if there's like necessarily a full right or wrong answer, but he embodies the worst of both. That'll be interesting. But they definitely make some interesting commentary. I think we'll find out a little bit later about, I'm thinking about Doma in particular too. There's some interesting commentary to be had there on some behaviors of humanity. But that's for another time. In the meantime, Gyoko's art is nasty.
Yeah. We
don't like it. And that is okay. All right, so we are not pleased with Gyoko, and neither is Muichiro, because he finds the art that we're looking at grotesque as well. And he tells him that he's going to need to knock it off, which is a little bit unlike what we've seen of him so far. He doesn't really seem to care too much about how other people are affected by anything that's surrounding them. But he can tell that, like, the swordsmiths are very upset, and he's gonna put a stop to it. And we get to see some misbreathing again.
The misbreathing, I will say, is so cool. Just watching what it feels like, Muichiro just phasing in and out of the screen is really awesome. And then, he is very quick and nimble to try and get to Gyoko. And, we see Gyoko do something interesting. He just switches pots. And Muichiro is trying to figure out what's going on. How does he switch pots so quickly? Because he gets very close to slashing him, but just barely misses. So it's now becoming more of a mystery of, like, what pieces of the puzzle. He knows who he's fighting now, and he knows kind of, what to expect based off their demeanor, but the why of everything still needs to be unraveled, which I think leaves a good mystery for Muichiro to lead into.
Yeah, I liked the way they did it, where his misbreathing started, but he didn't say it. Which is like one of the first times we've ever seen that. And I think that's really cool. It kind of speaks to his speed. I think like he was able to just be like, all right, like cut it out, And we're getting some sass from him. The cut it out, the knock it off. And we're seeing him really grow. And I know we still might not love him yet, but I'm fully on Team Muichiro now. I'm just throwing it out there.
He's growing on us, for sure. Yeah, it's a nice moment to get to see him care, even if it's very brief. But he is able to land a couple blows on the pots. The problem is that the pots keep appearing. So how are we going to be able to take this demon down? We're not quite sure yet. Pots are not his only specialty. We learn quickly. He is an artist. He has a lot of different forms of art. And he has created all the fish that are obviously running rampant on the village as well. So we've seen like those fish. He has more than one fish in the pond as well. And he unleashes some goldines on everybody. Goldine! Another blood demon art. And these goldines are deadly. And they can spew needles. Muichiro's able to evade them the first time, but then the fish turn onto our poor little swordsmiths that are there, who are not able to dodge as easily. And Muichiro shields them from all these needles, even though they land squarely in his own small body.
Again, I say, Muichiro is growing on me. I'm fully in his team now. Knew this was coming, and it was still hard. Those fish were very funny looking, but like funny looking in a good way, and very creepy and interesting. But I love how fast Muichiro is acting in this fight scene. I mean, we're really getting to see why he's a Hashira. Like, every time he's just not fighting, he seems so like disinterested, not functioning. I mean, a few episodes he was literally sitting there like this with our other two hooligans, just with button eyes, just being weird, And now he's thinking so fast, and he, originally went to take down the pot because that's how the other fish had gone down, and now he's figuring out that that's not it, and he's putting together that the head needs to be cut off on this one because he's actually trying to dodge it, which he's remembering from Upper 4, at the beginning of this fight, and Tanjiro's like, no, the head doesn't work, and he's just thinking quick, and then he jumps in to save them, and also Kanamori was going to protect Kotetsu, so Kanamori jumped in front of Kotetsu, and then Muichiro jumped in front of Kanamori. So we've got like multiple people just trying to protect like Kotetsu, who's only 10. Like, he's only 10. Like, I love that they're like being so protective of him. And now Muichiro's got multiple needles stuck through him. I mean, all over the place. And things are feeling grim, but also, we've seen some other Hashira be able to handle poison pretty well, so it's kind of hard to tell, like, okay, what's exactly going to happen? Can he handle it? Can he not? His body is a lot smaller than Tengen's, so that might be an issue, but definitely still feeling hope that not all hope is lost.
Yeah, not all hope is lost quite yet, but it's also not looking super, super good either. It's nice to see him step in and try to defend people, but this guy just keeps adding more and more and more to his blood demon art abilities, and that's to be expected, perhaps, from an upper rank demon, but it doesn't make it any easier to watch. And in the midst of this fight, we, I think, see Muichiro grapple a little bit with both what the demon's saying and also probably his own mortality in this moment as well. I think we even see a moment where he feels slightly startled. There's like the widening of the eyes, even though it's brief. And we get a flashback, too. We don't get much of a flashback, because we know that Muichiro, like we said in the last episode, is struggling, to remember details of his past and struggles with disassociation. And all we get are some cruel words out of this flashback that he remembers that somebody else said to him.
That was rough, man. Your lives are worthless, I think was the quote on screen. Man, and I mean, if that's what's gonna flash you back, right? Talk about arrogance from a demon, and then, you know, this trigger of him like remembering this, you know, traumatic memory. I'm not exactly sure where this comes from, but it's definitely something that helps to kind of clear the haze of Muichiro's mind, because even with all these needles in his face, he is still actively working towards figuring something out. And I mean, quite literally, when faced with adversity, just pushes through and tries to find a way around it. I think it's really interesting because, you know, now at this point, he's kind of understood that, like, his job is to not try and protect the entire village, but he needs to take this demon down in order to protect the village. Is originally he was going after the chief, right? And now it's, you know, he's been able to shift his priorities because kind of what Tanjiro said, and that shift in priorities has helped him learn something about himself. So I think it's really a demonstration of like a coping mechanism for Muichiro as he's been able to kind of decide what the right choice is for this battle.
I think that's an interesting call out. I didn't put it together until now with Muichiro shifting, you know, from wanting to protect the village chief to like moving over here. Gyoko did the same thing. Like his goal was, except in the opposite way, his goal was to take out the village chief, but now he's shifting his priorities because something's going on at the shed that seems important. And both Muichiro and Gyoko don't really know what's happening. All they know is, like, for some reason, we're being drawn here. His instinct is kicking in, but also, like you said, this really has been brought on by Tanjiro. And not to, like, call out my boy a little early, because he's going to get his moment to shine here in a minute, but even at the very beginning, you know, Kanamori was like, Tanjiro said to say, you know, to hold on to this sword for you or whatever, and he was just like, Tanjiro said that? And you can tell, like, the words that Tanjiro said just for the brief moment is really, like, resonating with him, and it's causing him to have these moments. But also the second flashback really was because Gyoko said, like, your life is worthless, and he was reminded of a person saying that to him in his past. And we also saw him, like, sitting as a kid in this hot summer day, not much yet, but that mist is starting to clear, and I can't wait to see more.
It's gonna be so good. The mist is clearing, but it's also coming because he is slashing around. So beautiful job with the mist breathing once again. It definitely surpassed my expectations, but we'll have to come back to Muichiro and Kotetsu soon because now we have to pan back to Tanjiro and Nezuko. And, you know, we are trapped in the rubble. This is looking a whole lot like the end of Entertainment District again. A little bit less fire so far, but the dust is literally settling, which is providing them momentarily some cover from all the split forms of Hatengu. And Nezuko is trapped, like Aaron's mom, under the rubble.
Okay, I'm glad to know I'm not the only person that thought of that.
Rip ith. But she's under there, and I don't know what the initial train of thought was. I'd have to go look at it again. I don't think he was trying to pull her from it necessarily, but she's grabbing his sword, and, you know, clearly, like, it's cutting and digging into her hands. He's begging her to stop, and she will not let go of this sword. And we see the split forms of Hatengu walking around looking for them, and so they have to be quiet, and they have to formulate their battle strategy from here.
Well, yeah, they have to formulate a battle strategy, but Nezuko still can't talk. So yeah. Tanjiro, like, as much as he's trying, he doesn't understand what she's trying to do. At first, I think, you know, she grabbed the sword and he thought that meant, like, she was grabbing onto it so he could pull her out. But then she, like, won't let go, and he's like, I'll move the rubble for you. Like, I'll get you out. Like, you're cutting your fingers. Stop. But she, like you said, she just won't let go. So this can be, like, a challenge for them. Like, they work really well together, but the fact that she can't say anything can still make it hard to, like, understand what's going on. And of course, he's the protective big brother. He doesn't want to see her in pain. So he's, like, actually getting, like, super, super, like, anxious because they're looking around for them. He's trying to be quiet, but Tanjiro is not very good at being quiet. Let's be real. And he's our favorite passionate boy. But he, so he's like, stop, like, I'll get you out. But he doesn't know what to do. And of course he's going like, think. But he's also trying to protect Nezuko. And, it's very chaotic, but we're about to see some pretty spectacular stuff. Also, Muichiro got stuck in a vase of water.
Oh, yes.
So that's not good.
Yeah, we left that out. That's another vase. We're coming back to the vases. Yoko's got a style. He is stuck in a literal vase of water, made entirely and consisting of water. And he is not a water breather. He is a mist breather. So maybe more to come on that, but right now things are not looking so good for him.
I forget. Because I remember in one of the episodes, they talk about the, like, styles of breathing and the branches of them. Is mist breathing a branch of wind or water breathing?
I believe wind.
Okay. Because we see that it kind of looks like water breathing coming out of the vase that Kyoko uses to encapture Muichiro. So just a thought, he could have maybe tapped into a different side of his breathing to figure it out. Probably not, though. Coming back to Nezuko and Tanjiro in the rubble. I think this is kind of like that situation where someone's trying to tell you something and you're like so caught on your own plan that you can't figure out that someone else is trying to do something. And then you're just like, oh, finally you got it. And so this was Tanjiro's moment. Like, he did not get that Nezuko was lining up for kind of what happened in season 1, where she used Hinokami against Rui, and then he was able to kind of work together through it. But finally, they figure it out, and blood-covered swords, scary things. Scary things are coming.
It is going to be crazy. We're going to jump into it, but we've never seen Nezuko use her flames, I don't think, on his sword. It's been used to help other people so far. And we've seen that there are a lot of like healing properties to the flames, at least for humans. For demons, it's fatal. So what we see in this moment with the pink flames being unleashed, we already know that the swords are special. We've cleared that a number of times. This is the only way that you can kill a demon. You have to behead them with a special sword forged in the Swordsmith Village, which we have. And Nezuko's flames also are immensely harmful to demons. She's encapsulating the sword in her flames, so we've got a double whammy coming.
I was just gonna use that word. Double whammy!
Double whammy! Honey, you got a big storm coming.
Huh.
I don't know, shall we just dive right in? One of the best scenes in the anime so far, I think. And these poor split forms of Hatengu have no idea what's coming.
They're all confident and all. It's like, oh boy.
Honestly, so leading into this moment that we're all talking about, because if you watch the episode, if you know, you know. But, right, we see that at first, the sword kind of lights ablaze. And then we flash into Tanjiro's memory. And Tanjiro, I'm not sure if he understands where this comes from, because he sees another person with a similar Haori, and another person who somewhat is wearing a pink outfit here, so kind of a parallel between him and Nezuko. But then, right, they talk about a red blade, and they refer to the swordsman who we saw in Tanjiro's dream in episode 1 with the Hanafuda earrings, and, is this a style that he used? He's still trying to figure it out, but nonetheless, he feels the presence, or at least he's joined by the thoughts of everyone he's been helped by so far. Also, they did Rengoku dirty in that scene. They literally left him off screen. Like, his left leg was there, and they also cut Tengen off screen. I'm going to go on a quick tangent to say this is like the Titanic. There was enough room on the float, okay? They all could have been there, right? They could have just scraunched into the background, stood behind everybody.
That was laughable.
Rengoku as an inner tube. Every night in my dreams. A little penny whistle solo for my boy. Rest in peace.
Oh my god. Oh,
all I know is pain.
Oh man, I love that. Like his blade is turning red. It's still wrapped in her pink flames, and he gets this like vision, of Sumiyoshi. It's been established that that's the character's name that looks just like him. A girl, unnamed, but we're pretty sure it's Sumiyoshi's wife. And she's saying things like, your sword is usually like a obsidian black, like the deepest black. But when you fight, it turns red. And Tanjiro's like, I don't know who this man is with the Hanafuda earrings, but if his sword was black, that's just like me. And he's like, okay, like, who was this man and what did he do? And how am I connected to him? And we're still not getting those answers yet, but, and it gives him that realization that he needs to do some pretty amazing stuff.
Hell yeah, he does. We get to see him draw his sword up high beyond his head. And in this moment, we switch point of views, and we're back at the split forms of Hatengu, and they're seeing Tanjiro lift this sword, and they're also seeing some inherited memories that we've talked about, and they know what this one is, though. Tanjiro knows less about it. They are realizing that they are seeing some of Muzan's memories, and they're like, this is the swordsman that almost beheaded him. This is the guy with the Hanafuda earrings and the sword that turned... Like, they know exactly, and they know that they're in trouble in this moment. And in this moment, we also get to see Tanjiro kind of, like, overlaps with the unnamed swordsman in the background, and we get to see them, like, transition and see the confusion from the point of view of the demons, and we get to see his mark come out, too. It's so good.
Bro, literally, the way that they switched between... Because at this point, right, they're seeing pure red. Like, they're seeing danger. They're seeing pure... what they deem evil, because they know that something powerful is coming back at them, and they are terrified because they know what it was in the past. They don't know what it is now, and that's their problem in this moment. And honestly, Tanjiro feels the difference at this point. He knows that he has something deep inside him now, and he launches forward. Beautiful what comes next.
Just that whole sequence, starting with like the vision of these people, and then we see, even in the comedy of Tengen being cut off and only seeing Rengoku's Haori, and then, that was all funny, but then we see their arms, we see Tengen, we see Urokodaki, we see Nezuko, we see Rengoku kind of like pushing him forward, and he says like, all of these lives are like pushing me forward, and literally physically that's what it's doing. So we get like the emotions of that, because like Rengoku's there, and we're calling back to him, and then the demons, like, we get the same kind of like editing that Daki saw in episode 6 of Entertainment District, which was also a spectacular episode. The mark is back. Tanjiro is an absolute beast, like beast mode Tanjiro. This unnamed swordsman, we're flashing, the demons are scared. Just this whole sequence of event is building up to this final moment, which we're probably about to talk about, so I won't go into that much detail yet. But it's just like, all of a sudden, like, this episode has been really good, but we're in the home stretch. Like, we know this episode's ending soon, and we're just like, it's like build up from the moment Nezuko is holding on to his sword until we're seeing like, oh my gosh, like the mark is here, like, oh, we're going for it. We're on episode 5. Like, let's pump the brakes, but not really. It's been wild.
It's Hinokami Kagura time. Hannah's favorite time of day. But this is a Hinokami Kagura like we've never seen before. Brand new form, brand new inherited memories. Dragon?
There is some Japanese like folklore that like a dragon is one of the strongest creatures that exists, right? That's why it's usually associated with some of the stronger moves. Like, it's associated with the 10th form of water breathing, which is considered the final and the strongest move. And we've seen Tanjiro use a lot of Hinokami Kagura, but we have yet to see it with a dragon. So he's still getting that strength. And I think that's just really cool to kind of show, with that like Japanese background that, they believe that these dragons are so strong. So when you see that dragon, you know that the moves that he's unleashing are beyond what he's done before. And it took a while to build up to the 10th form of water breathing in season 1. And that happened in episode 19. And it's taken a while to build up to this moment. And now we're seeing him use possibly the strongest form of Hinokami Kagura. It might be like the end or whatever. We don't know yet. So it's absolutely beautiful and top 5 episodes. I heard rumors that it was going to be like top 5 episodes as far as like animation goes, and it did not disappoint at all. And shout out to Hanai-san, the Hinokami Kagura like being like with his chest, like there was a grunt in it. I was like, all right, I'm gone.
I think at some point during that sequence, we all stopped breathing. Like, it was just so good. And Hannah, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I believe that the dragon is believed to be the strongest because they originate from koi fish and they have to swim up a waterfall. Once they swim up the waterfall, that's when they transform into a dragon. So it's that constant fight against the opposition or opposing forces that creates that strength, which is really interesting for Tanjiro's entire story to kind of culminate in this moment, because really since 5 minutes into Demon Slayer, he's had these tragic things happen to him, whether it be, his entire family being slaughtered or his friends being in shambles, and he has to pick up kind of where he can to make sure that they stay alive. So very interesting on that piece. Then, this beautiful animation, this pink and red and orange, all these colors coming together. I know Hannah just made the Avatar Dragon Dance reference, but I'm gonna go for it again. Those flames were just so beautiful, and I think it was really a true culmination of both of our protagonists, like we mentioned, because now he's carrying on some of Nezuko's will. This was Nezuko's idea to make this blade red. He did not have that. He had a concept of it once she kind of ignited his spark. But like we've talked about before, he is a child of spark. He is a child of prodigy with his original, reception of his sword being a child of flame. So they really are shining in their own light with this moment because they're able to work together so well, but also demonstrate the true strength that they've developed from episode 1.
And they've developed a lot of strength. Tom decided he wants to watch it again from the beginning, so we are, and we just passed final selection. But just for context, just to go bring it back to the beginning and to remember the amount of strength that has been developed, for context, to even be sent to final selection, Tanjiro sliced that boulder. Think about the size of that thing and the strength that it took to do that, and this is where we are now. It's like otherworldly, the strength that we have at this point. And it's going to keep getting stronger. And now we also have, like you said, Nezuko's added strength into the mix. And the last time that we saw even anything close to this, I think, was the fight with Rui. Otherwise, she's mostly used the flames to be able to heal other people or to like wake them up on the Mugen train.
Yeah, they haven't really... I mean, Nezuko isn't really fighting in this moment. She's still stuck under the rubble. Like, I think he understood, like, she can probably get herself out of that. Like, she was focused on his sword. Mm-hmm. And he understood that, and he chose to then take what she's trying to give him and also what he's experiencing in this moment with, like, these flashbacks of not even his own past, And so he's chosen to move forward. So, like, she's not necessarily, like, fighting herself, but also, like, this is part of her power with him. And that's why they animated these flames to be more orange and pink, because her flames are pink. And you're right, like, he's always been strong. Like, no human in normal circumstances can slice a boulder with a sword. And they also said that he had the biggest boulder of all of Rokuraki's students, because I think he made the boulder bigger each time because he kept on losing his students, so he was, like, trying to protect him. But to see the two of them still, like, in a sense, they're working together so well, and we haven't really seen that. Last arc, they, like, Nezuko helped, but they never really worked together. Mugen Train, they worked together a little bit, but it was more just Nezuko waking people up. So this is like really the first time it's like the culmination of our Kamado siblings together to make just this beautiful spectacle. And Tanjiro is just, like I said, a beast and going ham. And it's very similar to the Hinokami Kagura that we got when he was up against Daki with the blood tears. But now he's in control. Mm-hmm. He's not completely like blinded by anger and in this state that's like beyond human capacity. He is fine. He doesn't break a sweat. But this is like the power that he has grown into with the help of Nezuko specifically.
Sun Halo Dragon Head Dance is beautiful. It creates the infinite shape, which I'm sure is extraordinarily intentional. And again, blending both of their colors. We've got the pink for Nezuko. We've got Tanjiro's Hinokami Kagura flames. And he beheads these demons swiftly.
He couldn't do that with Daki even in last season.
No.
He wasn't even able to behead her.
No, and he reflects on, and Yutaro too, he's like, oh, and this is like slightly after he uses the breathing form, but he does reflect on not being able to easily decapitate, but like tapping into that same feeling in his chest and physically the fiery feeling like he is like burning up. But this comes a lot more easily than even what we saw technically like less than 10 episodes ago chronologically.
Didn't realize it was that close. Quick turnaround for our boy, nonetheless. But right, as he's looking back, and he was like, oh, damn, I did that. I just went and beheaded 3 parts of upper 4. And so kind of here is where he's realizing that, you know, he has grown a lot. And I think this is really good for him to see that he was able to so quickly maneuver between all 3 of these parts that are looking for him at the moment. And I think we'll go into the next moment shortly, but realizing that Tanjiro can very much so stand his own ground at this point. You know, he was talking about in his vision all these other times these other people have come to help him, whether it was Tengen in the entertainment district, whether it was, you know, Rengoku on the Mugen train saving him from Akaza. A lot of different moments he's been supported by others. And so this is one of his truly first moments where he's going solo at a battle and really taking charge. He's, you know, not critically injured at this point. I mean, he's still, you know, recovering from entertainment district because he was only here for about maybe a couple days or so. And so this is all very, very like fresh and very like out the gate for him.
It is, but he keeps getting better. And like Hana said, he's not breaking a sweat this time. This time, this kind of move in entertainment district would have left him really struggling afterwards. He already was in a coma for several months after that fight, between getting battered by the demons, which I would argue that he's already been battered a good amount in this fight too. And then also like the recoil effect of the breathing style. It's like his body wasn't quite ready for it yet. This time he is. And he's able to behead many of them at the same time, look over his shoulder and be totally fine. And even be ready to possibly do it again because he recognizes that, like, similar to the entertainment district fight, they might need to be all decapitated at the same time. That brings us to Mr. Genya. It looks like he's got the last demon, right?
I mean, he's holding onto the head. And then Tanjiro's like, oh, did we behead them at the same time? Like, does that mean, like, he's like, did we do it? Did we do it? I mean, we're on episode 5, so. But, Genya.
Something's a little different about him. Get a haircut?
Bro, literally, okay, listen, you know, when you have a mental breakdown, they say you dye your hair. And I was like, oh my god, Genya, same, girl. With those yellow tips. And I was like, yes, work. And then he, like, turned around and had yellow eyes. And I was like, oh, no, don't work. Don't like that. Not very pleasant to see, especially from Tanjiro, who's held his teeth, who has been ever so kind to this soul, to now see the state he is in. He's a little baffled. Honestly, as manga reader, I was baffled because the way that they did him, just justice. But a very interesting cliffhanger to leave off on, for sure.
Absolutely. And I think even the last lines that we get from Tanjiro are kind of key here. Because he goes, it's almost as if, or it's almost like, what is it almost like?
He's just like, why does he look like that? Like, what? Like,
Reminds me of somebody else that we've seen, or that Tanjiro has seen a long time ago. Somebody that he knew very well, looking a little bit different than usual. And that's where we cut the episode. More to come, perhaps.
Shrug.
I don't know. But what an amazing episode this week. Any final thoughts before we transition to our favorite moments? Which will probably be collectively a favorite moment.
I'm really happy that Genya had the dipped green hair, like it is on the cover of one of the manga volumes. I think a lot of people were hoping for that, and we got it. And it's along with some other things that are going on, you know. We zoomed in on the fangs and the drool. So what's going on? We don't know. Tanjiro's very confused, but that's where we're leaving it. So we can't really speak on it much yet because we got to tune in and find out. Finger guns.
All right, then. Favorite moments. Are we all in agreement?
It's hard not to be.
Just the entire Hinokami Kagura moment.
Absolutely. We watched it 3 times, I think. We're like, wait. Go do that again. Well, I think we even already said it in this episode. UFO Table keeps blowing our expectations out of the water. We went and we were like very privileged to be able to go see the Swordsmith Village at the Los Angeles premiere, and getting to see it on the big screen is something really special. But in particular, the Infinity Castle moment knocked our socks off with the animation, and we keep asking, how will it get better from here? And we asked the same thing with the Entertainment District fight, and before that we asked the same thing with Mugen Train, and before that we asked the same thing with the first Hinokami Kagura, and it keeps progressing, and that is such an exciting prospect for fans, because this moment once again knocked everything before it, I think, almost out of the water. Yeah. And it keeps building upon itself, and that sets a really, really exciting precedent for everything that's going to keep coming.
Yeah, well, I think it's partially because, like, there's a lot of stuff going on here. Like, the animation is taking a step up, but also, like, Tanjiro's taking a step up. Like, it's more powerful. Like, he's fully in control. We're also seeing his flames have more pink in them because of Nezuko's help in this situation as well. So, like, there's these added little tidbits that just make it even better than before. But I agree. I go back to layered memories of last season, and of course Never Give Up as well. Like, both those episodes are kind of seen as the 2 big, like, whoa, animation moments. I'm like, that was honestly kind of better. Like, I was holding my breath for that. Like, I don't think I breathed because I was just like, oh my gosh. And the specific thing that I want to call it that we didn't talk about is, I said it earlier in the episode, but I like to call it the soundtrack. And the Hinokami Kagura has its own theme for Tanjiro, and just the way they styled it and the way they added it into this moment with, like, the Demon Slayer theme in general was just so satisfying to go along with the rest of the beauty of this scene. You got the soundtrack, you've got the animation, and to top it all off, you got Hanai-san just being an absolute badass with some voice acting here, and you have a 10 out of 10 scene.
Yeah, honestly, the zoom out when you see the entire dragon is just so beautiful. It's so cool to watch the way that each individual beheading felt like a continuous slice. And I mean, when they said slice of life, they meant it. So it was just so cool to watch how Tanjiro has kind of grown up in front of us. And that's the goal of animes, right? Is to watch your MC grow and push their limits. And this is truly that representation of, from square one to really holding their own at this point. So I think this is just a really amazing scene because it captures not just beautiful animation, not just cool fight choreo, but it has so much meaning and, so much backstory behind these moments at this point. It's a very powerful moment. But I want to shout out again, second favorite moment, because I have to bring up Mitsuri again. We saw this coming, folks. I will say, it reminds me, she gives me a little bit of a Catwoman vibe because of the whip, right? But she's a lot more playful, a lot more fun. I am so happy that Mitsuri got the moment she did on screen because she deserves it so much. Like, to think, like, we know the Hashira are a new level, right? We understand that. But for someone to just keep walking like nothing's wrong. Like, she was like, all right, I see 4 demons. Pa, 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 pa. And then she was done. She was like, all right, cool, on to the next one. Mm-hmm. Like, she didn't even flinch. She knew that they were gone. And I'm pretty sure Hana said that earlier, but I'm going to say it again. She knew. She didn't have to look back at it. She knew what was coming. She was like, I got that. No problem. And then she found the big one. She was like, all right, cut you up. I'll make some sushi now. Like, seriously, like, it was just crazy to watch her just walk in, take over the fight, and be like, all right, cool, what's the next thing we got to do? Just such girl power, gatekeep, gaslight, girl boss. I don't know.
I think you did it right. Good job.
Okay, cool. There was a team at one of our panels that we ran who was that, and I could not pronounce their name right to save their lives. So.
Girl boss.
Gatekeep.
Gaslight.
Gaslight. Gatekeep girl.
Gatelight. Keep boss.
Gaslight, gatekeep, girl boss, I think.
Favorite moments abound, but I think that, again, we've got Mitsuri. I know we were lucky to have Jenna here for a minute with us. I think that Muichiro might have been a bittersweet favorite moment in that regard. And of course, crowd favorite has got to be Tanjiro. So, incredible episode. I cannot wait to see what's coming next. I think that's all the time that we have for today, though. We probably are already well over. So thank you again for coming with us on this journey. If you liked what you've seen, please make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel if you're watching us on here. If you're listening, you're able to follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We are on Twitter. We are on every social media. So please just give us a follow. Give us a comment if you have any questions or anything that you'd like to see in a future episode. And we will see you same time, same place next week. Umai.
Umai.
Umai. And one more thing. On today's episode of the Hashira Half Hour, Hana-san did appear.
In the form of electronic recording.
Thank you.